A fight between prosecutors over whether or not to charge former President Donald Trump with financial crimes is spilling into public view, all because of a new book from a former Manhattan prosecutor who was working on the case. That former assistant district attorney is Mark Pomerantz, an expert on white-collar crime with a ton of experience prosecuting and defending organized crime cases. Pomerantz says that if prosecutors were looking at similar evidence against anyone other than the former president, charges would have been brought in a, quote, flat second. He also compares Trump to John Gotti, the head of the Gambino organized crime family. The book gives a searing criticism of Manhattan's current DA, Alvin Bragg's decision not to bring charges last year, a decision that Pomerantz resigned over 1 year ago this month. But Bragg says that, quote, Mr. Pomerantz's plane wasn't ready for takeoff, and that it's appalling that he insulted the skill and professionalism of our prosecutors. Pomerantz's book about his time on the investigation, The People versus Donald Trump, an inside account, is out now, and he joins us live. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It is a riveting read, and it's a really important read for everyone to understand what you saw, what you did, and what didn't happen. What I find interesting is that you didn't used to talk to journalists. You're known for saying, I don't leak, right? Now you're out here with wanting to tell the world this story. Why did you write this?
Well, I wrote the book because it was an important story to tell. However one feels about Donald Trump, he is one of the central public figures of our time. And if, as I came to believe and as others came to believe, he committed crimes, there was a substantial case to be brought, and he needed to be held accountable for those crimes. That's an important issue, and I thought it was important to tell the story.
You know, Mark, there were several prongs to your investigation that largely focused on the overvaluation of a number of key properties to get favorable bank loans, but also your investigation included those hush money payments. You call the failure to move forward on those fronts a failure of justice. Why?
Well, I thought it was a failure of justice because measured by the standards that prosecutors typically apply when they're deciding whether to bring criminal cases, Donald Trump was guilty. We concluded that he was guilty. Every single member of the prosecution team thought that his guilt was established. I actually went around the room asking if anybody thought that he was innocent, and there were no dissenting voices when we had our meetings about this. So we thought he was guilty. We thought we had evidence that was legally sufficient to establish his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. We thought we had a reasonable prospect of winning the case, of persuading a jury. You can never be certain, and this case was not a slam dunk. And there were aggravating circumstances. So I and others, including the former district attorney, Cy Vance, thought it was appropriate to go forward with the prosecution.
Even you yourself had told Cy Vance, I believe, and Alvin Bragg, look, we've got about a 70% chance of convincing a jury on this stuff, so not a slam dunk, but it was, you recount in the book, December 13th, 2021, when Cy Vance, the former Manhattan DA, authorized you to move forward here with criminal charges. My question to you is twofold. Why didn't he do it? I understand Bragg was coming in, but Cy Vance could have done this, right? Well, and why do you believe Bragg didn't?
Sure. With regard to the timing, as I talk about in the book, we were working flat out. When we got toward the end of 2021 and the end of Cy Vance's tenure, we simply couldn't get it done and done professionally and well before the end of the year. I am sure he would have liked to have had the job finished during his term, but we thought it was more appropriate to do it right and get it right and not to have the timing controlled by a decision of the calendar in terms of when one term began and one term ended. With respect to the different decision that was made by the incoming district attorney, I can't speak in detail about what went through his mind. I can surmise from what happened at the time and statements that he's made since that he had misgivings about the strength of the case. And what I take from it is that in these circumstances, when the stakes are so high, it's human nature to look for an overwhelming case, a case where everything suggests that a jury must find the defendant guilty, that it's a slam dunk. And that's not the standard we apply in the great run of criminal cases. One can argue that it's a standard that should be applied to a former president, but my judgment, as I explain in the book, was that princes and paupers, presidents and anybody else should be held to the same standard, and that you shouldn't be looking for a superabundance of evidence beyond proof, beyond a reasonable doubt, when you make the decision about going forward.
You talk about the argument of going slowly and methodically, getting all your ducks in a row before you do something that's never been done before, right? No president has ever been indicted for criminal conduct. Let's talk about what's happening now, because in your book, you say that this decision by Bragg and the team was a legal equivalent of a plane crash, but the principal cause was pilot error. But now, what we've learned from reporting is that Bragg has been presenting evidence to a grand jury related to these hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Do you still feel that way? Is this still a legal plane crash, or do you see him doing now, at least in part, what you wanted to do then?
Look, I hope the investigation goes forward. I hope that it results in a prosecution, because I think the evidence was there. I don't know that the facts have changed at all. Perhaps we'll see over time. But if the district attorney makes the decision to go forward, that's a decision that I would welcome. I believe it's warranted by the evidence, and I wish him well in that endeavor. This is not a personal issue or a fight. It's a disagreement about prosecution policy.
Just one final question.
Sure.
Andrew Weissman, who you know served as lead prosecutor for Bob Mueller, actually called Bragg's decision courageous and not one that would be politically beneficial to him, his decision not to move forward when you wanted to. The District Attorneys Association of New York has a pretty harsh response to your book, Mark. They say that a former prosecutor speaking out during an ongoing criminal investigation is unfortunate and unprecedented. They say that you've upended the norms and the ethics of prosecutorial conduct. And I wonder if you are sure, right? There was a fight over this, whether you should be even out there saying these things given the ongoing investigation. Are you sure this won't at all interfere with the ongoing investigation and grand jury right now?
Yeah, look, I wrote the book in part because I believe there should be a prosecution, that Donald Trump did commit crimes for which he should be held accountable. The last thing I wanted to do or would do was get in the way of an investigation or a prosecution, and I'm confident I didn't do that. The investigation, the prosecution, if it comes, will be decided based on the law and the facts, and nothing I wrote in the book changes either the law or the facts that will be available to the prosecution to prove its case if the case goes forward.
But since you haven't been in the office for 1 year, or just finally, how do you know that? How do you know that those things haven't changed and that it's not interfering?
Well, I know that the facts that I described in the book were not secrets that were being shared for the first time. The facts surrounding the hush money, the facts surrounding the financial statements are facts that were in the public domain. On the financial statement front, those facts were summarized in a complaint that the New York State Attorney General filed,
Yep.
and summarized in over 200 pages the details of the case. On the hush money side, the facts have been public for literally years. Michael Cohen wrote about it in a book. Stormy Daniels wrote a book. The federal government brought the case against Michael Cohen. The information was out there for everyone to see. And my discussing it in the book and expressing my views and my conclusions does not get in the way of any case that might be brought.